This program deals with themes of an adult nature and is intended for a mature audience.
The KTPF Community Talk Show is sponsored by Dragonos Castle, South Wales, one of the most haunted castles in Wales. For more information on ghostly and ghostly events, including Fright Nights, all-night investigations and hen parties, visit www.mosthauntedcastle.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the KTPF Community Talk Show, live in Manchester, or from Manchester, on www.ktpf.co.uk. My name's Suzanne.
And I'm Steve.
And we're here to bring you some stories of weird... yes. We're here to bring you stories and news from the paranormal world with our guests, and hopefully give you something else to think about. So sit back and relax, because that's what this show's all about, isn't it, Steve? It's a relaxed show.
Yes, keep it nice and relaxed, and hopefully we have something on that interested you guys, and you can give us loads of questions to ask our guests. Either that, or you can come on and ask the questions yourself.
Yeah, so for those of you who are new to the show, we do like keeping the paranormal friendly, which is what KTPF stands for, and we do this every day, not the radio show. We do the radio show once a week. It is recorded for radio replay purposes on our YouTube channel, and talking about our YouTube channel, we'd just like to say a big hello to Chris Mack, who can't get into the chat room on a Sunday night, but he loves listening to our replays. And when we didn't do it the other week because of Skype problems, he was asking where we were. So I know that he's listening somewhere, whether it be tonight or sometime during the week. So hi to him. And talking about chat room, let's see who's actually in the chat room at the moment, Steve.
Yes, we have our Ghost Rider, of course. We have Andy, formerly known as Andy 707. We have Mankey Hypno Man. We have Paul down at Ace Paradox. And at the moment we have a few more viewers than that in.
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to join in with the chat.
And a word of warning, Andy said nobody mentioned the score today or he's off.
Okay. So nobody mentioned the score. Okay, otherwise they'll be off. But as I say, don't forget, if you do want to join us in the chat room and give us some questions, not a problem. For our guest tonight, which just happens to be American-born Jerret Gardner, who will be talking to us from Japan. He was born in 1973. He's a former military journalist and graduate of the United States Defense Information School for Broadcast Journalism in Fort Meade, Maryland. During his career, he has written numerous articles for military posts in the Asian Pacific region. He has also had his photographs published in the U.S. Department of Defense's military media outlet Stars and Stripes. We'll be talking to Jerret about about some of the lesser-known paranormal activities that have occurred over the years at the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Also, we'll talk a little about his book, Volume 2, of What Egyptologists Don't Want You to See. So, could be an interesting topic tonight, couldn't it, Steve?
Good. I want to know what they don't want us to know.
This is it. But as I say, somebody's Manco Hypno Man's just been to Spain, and he saw Alison.
Yeah.
So she spoke to me today. So she's going to work out that coming on in the new year.
And we've just had Jan and Steph join us.
Oh, brilliant. Welcome to Lanarkshire Paranormals, Jan and Steph. Hi to you. So, nice to see you in the chat room at last. So, as I say, we're going to go with the observations that Steve's got, and then about 8:30 we'll be talking to Jerret Gardner.
Yes.
Are you ready, Steve?
And here we go with your first link. You know, I only put these links up so people know I'm not making it up, don't you?
Oh, I know. So, well, it's either that or you get moaned at by Andy because he wants to see what you're reading about. So that when you get them big words...
He can correct me.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
what
here
it's
we
all
go.
about.
Scientists create a ghost in lab study.
Oh, yeah.
The sense of feeling of ghostly presence has been created in a lab by scientists recently. According to the study, scientists located the area in the brain that causes the sense that someone is watching them, but no one is there. Discovery News reported yesterday. Here we go, Andy, you can correct me on this one. Dr. Giulio Rognini, of Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, has created an experiment that simulates the sensation that there is a ghost nearby. Many people experience the feeling of ghostly presence, and some even see spirits. Dr. Rognini believes that the phenomena is caused by the brain.
Mm.
Excuse me, something we've mentioned before, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sensation is very vivid. They feel somebody that they cannot see. It is always felt a presence. Dr. Rognini said. Dr. Rognini experiments. His team researchers ran tests on 12 people with neurological disorders, and they experienced ghostly presence. The researchers found that each patient suffered damage in parts of the brain associated with the movement of self-awareness. What is astonishing is that they frequently report that the movements they are doing or the posture they are assuming at the specific moment is replicated by the presence. So if the patient is sitting, they feel the presence is sitting. If they are standing, the presence is standing, and so on. Our brain processes several representations of our bodies in space, Dr. Rognini said about the study. They also did a similar study with another 48 people when they did it with them blindfolded and got similar results.
Well, Andy said that old chestnut again. It's been around for years. So that means that all of us who experience ghosts must all have had some brain problem. Steph said, my question is, with the scientific equipment, is what about more than one person seeing the same apparition? True.
More, presumably they would have to do the experiment together.
Yes. And Manky Hypnoman said, yes, Richard Wiseman did something similar years ago. So, what's next?
Right. Next we have an update from Zach Baggins.
Oh, dear. Good
Yes,
old Zach.
Remember the portal to Hell House that I mentioned quite a while ago?
Yes.
That he decided to buy.
Yes.
Well, he was due to do a documentary, but
you forgot to post.
Zach Baggins stops production. I stopped the post.
Yeah, you didn't post the actual link. Oh, you did. It's come up at last. Sorry about that.
See?
All right. Come up on my one at last. Right, go on then.
Your computer's on go slow.
Yes, go on. Carry on.
Okay, here we go. Zach Baggins stops production of Demon House documentary due to unsafe conditions. Ghost Adventurers host Zach Baggins recently halted production of the documentary film that will feature an alleged haunted house that he purchased earlier this year. According to a post on his Twitter page yesterday, Baggins said the house became unsafe for his crew and he had to call a priest in to exorcise the house. Every time I say exercise, I keep thinking of getting it to do push-ups or something. The small house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana, has over 800 pages of official police reports of odd occurrences that have been said to have happened there. Police captain with the Gary Police Department says he believes the home is haunted. According to the police captain, various psychics, the house is infested with hundreds of ghosts and demons. One busy house. As actually one of my production crew quit on the spot when he heard what the girl was doing when she was possessed. It was then that I made the decision that the home was unsafe and called the priest to exorcise the house. The exorcism was unsuccessful, and things continue. For the safety of the crew, we halted production, and it's been months since then. We plan to resume this in December. Baggins told TMZ last week. So he's going to have another go.
Sucker for punishment, if you ask me. Not in the same house, though.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point if he's just exercised it?
It didn't work.
Oh, right, okay.
It was unsuccessful.
Oh, right, okay. Don't mind me. Come back to play me up.
Hundreds of spirits and demons in one house. Mind you, we are talking about the Americans.
Yes.
Everything's a demon.
Aye.
That's not to say that there isn't a few out there, because we don't know.
No.
But it was assumed. Okay, here we go. Farmer claims skull found in chained box is from a werewolf.
Okay.
A werewolf. I'm definitely going to need a translator on this one. Trish wouldn't part with his werewolf skull, but he did let Ganov take pictures, which were... 1 second, folks. That seems to have been stuff missing there.
Is there some stuff missing?
There is, but you've got the link, so you will see it, so that's not too bad.
Okay.
Trace wouldn't part with his werewolf skull, but he did let Ganov take pictures, which were presented to a wildlife expert in Bulgaria, who speculated that it was indeed from a wolf, but not necessarily from a werewolf. Instead, he surmised the wolf was suffering from Paget's disease, a genetic disorder also common in humans that can cause misshapen bones and enlarged skull. Paget's disease can cause by canine distemper virus, a common virus in wolves and dogs. The skull definitely looks both canine and human, and a little baboonish, which would probably cause some consternation among Bulgarians and Macedonians raised on Eastern Europe folklore. The chain around the box is a good indication whoever buried it believed that it was a creature they did not want roaming around again. So Treya's skull is still in the box, and if you said it's from a werewolf, it's definitely a creature that is out of the norm. Only DNA tests will tell them.
And he says it looks fake.
There you go.
Well, you never know.
You can never tell these days. But I want to know what it actually says in the box. It's got some of the cryptic writing on it. You know, I probably said that wrong, but you know, like they've got the Russian writing.
Yeah,
It's got
like Polish or something.
Yeah. Let's go off it. So I want to know what that says. That could be a big help to us.
Is it a translation on there?
No, there's no translation on it at all.
Thought there would have been.
I would have thought so too.
Probably says do not open until Christmas.
Andy just said it's Cyrillic. Thank you, Andy.
Okay, next.
There's your next link.
Okay.
Watch spine-chilling footage of a ghost caught on camera at spooky abandoned psychiatric hospital. This is a spine-chilling moment. A hairdresser filmed what she believes is evidence that ghosts really do exist. From chilling child phantom snapped while peering out a window to a spectre hanging like it is from a rope around its neck. One brave lady claims she has captured photographic evidence of the supernatural. Shocking, the video footage shows a white apparition flying directly across the passageway, directly in front of the camera. Christy Jane Dean, 32, from Melbourne, Australia, explained why she decided to begin exploring the Lurendale Asylum in Bundoora, Victoria, which was built on the site of an ancient Aboriginal burial ground. After hearing all the scary stories, and because I live so close, I decided to see if there really were ghosts in this spooky place, she said. But I never go alone. There is always at least myself and a mate. I am terrified during our haunts, but at the same time I love it. In the photos you can see shadowy figure, unexplained mist and flying orbs, which she believes to be spirits. In some images I took amongst shadows, it's easy to see faces, and then in a couple of shots a full-on person or figure is clearly visible. Lurendale Asylum was built in 1938 to home people suffering from mental health problems. A fearsome reputation for abuse, violence and suicide among inmates and staff quickly surrounded the place. The institution pioneered the use of lithium to treat depression and was home to notorious serial killer Peter Dupas, who was found guilty of brutally slaying 3 women and is suspected of murdering 3 others. The asylum was closed in 1998 after concerns over the treatment of patients. It is now in the process of being demolished to make way for residential housing. So not only did they build an asylum on Aboriginal burial grounds, which I would have thought wouldn't have gone down well, now they're going to build houses on it. Now there is a video there, but when I actually clicked on it originally, I couldn't see the video.
Andy's just said the same thing.
It just kept, but there are some pictures below that. But the video itself, for some reason, just kept buffing.
Steph said he's not going to sleep tonight with all these stories.
He's got just as many spooky stories as we have.
Yes.
Okay, here's your next one. Ghostly figure photobombs friends selfie on girls' night out. Hey, spooks are now doing photobombs. 2 young women had taken the snap while out drinking, but later noticed a ghoulish figure lurking over their shoulders. A woman was told of her terror at discovering the ghost had photobombed her selfie. The picture of the girls was ruined when the ghostly figure of an elderly woman in Victorian clothing sneering at them from behind. The spooky apparition was caught on camera by pals Victoria Greaves, 22, and Kaylee Atkinson, 23, as they enjoyed a girls' night out in Newcastle upon Tyne on Sunday evening. The fans of Selfie, they had enjoyed a drink at the virtually empty Slug and Lettuce pun when they decided to take the snap. There we go. Excuse me. But after striking their best pose together, the girls noticed there was a third person in the photo, which appears to be an elderly lady dressed in Victorian clothing. Horrified by the chilling figure, Nurse Victoria deleted spine-tingling photo from her phone. She said, "We took the picture in the bar as we usually would. We are both fans of a selfie. I uploaded the picture to Snapchat and thought nothing more of it. But later that night, Kaylee rang me in a panic and told me to have a closer look. She said there was a figure in the background and I'm quite skeptical about things like that, so I just laughed at the time. But when I looked back at the picture, I could not believe what I was seeing. It is terrifying. I couldn't look at the picture at the beginning. I was too freaked out. It is so clear, and it looks like it can be described as a Victorian woman laughing behind us. The girls who have known each other for the past 6 years are regulars at the popular Riverside bar, but said they would think twice before going back there in the future." Now,
Be careful.
I did see it, and it is quite clear. But I have a sneaky feeling that it's an app.
It's an app, yeah.
I really do. Unfortunately, we can't take things like that for granted
Beth at
these days.
GPS said it could be that or someone on their way to a Halloween party.
Sounds good to me.
See, I like the fact that they're on the ball.
Yes.
In the chat room, you know what I mean. They come up with their own scenarios and what's going on. So it's really good.
That's
In fact, Andy's come up with similar crumb whatever the hell that means. Simulacrum.
Cinemacron.
I just did Google ghost apps actually, but I couldn't find it there. So
The thing is, there's so many of them.
I know there is. That's the trouble.
It could take you absolutely hours to go through them.
Is that your last one?
That is my last one.
Ooh.
And and that means Steph has got a few hours to get himself back to normal before going to bed. So he won't dream. just fixing my headphones.
I wonder how he got on with these
food,
apparition that he saw that we mentioned
I don't know.
before. Whether he's heard anything more about that. So
It'd be nice if he can come on and tell us if he's got any more details.
yeah.
Any more information
So
relating to.
As I say, it would be nice to find out whether there was anything else that he found out. But anyway, back to tonight. So maybe he can come on later on, maybe after our guests.
September.
Where your bearing tries to make a random shape into something familiar.
I think he means where your brain tries to make random shape.
Random shape into. We've gone all Scottish on me.
A random shape into something familiar.
I think it was going on about bairns. I thought you'd spelled it wrong.
The bairns?
Yeah. Huck the wee bairns are gleeking and all that lot.
Yes.
Paradolia. Yes, that's what I thought.
I'm sure Jan can say it a little bit better than that.
Yeah, huck the wee bairns are gleeking. So, but, no, he's on about brains apparently. So. They're faggots, aren't they, brains?
No, brains make faggots.
Oh, right, okay. Don't mind me. Told you I'm ill. We ban. So we ban. So. Right, so as I say, we're at 8:30. We're going to be talking to Jerret Gardner from Japan.
Yeah, I mean, having said that, looking at the picture again, it does seem quite clear. Even for pareidolia. So and on top of that, I would doubt that it is pareidolia, purely because we're all seeing the same bloody thing.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen in pareidolia, would it? Or am I wrong? I think if it's pareidolia, we'd see things differently.
Yeah, never know.
It probably is just a woman in the background.
What we're going to do later, after we come back from speaking to our guest tonight, I'm going to let you know what happened last night. Just to give you a bit of an idea, we was at Morecambe Winter Gardens. It was our 7th anniversary, wasn't it, Steve?
It was indeed.
Done a little
by the way, that means it is tonight as well.
What?
Our 7th anniversary.
Why?
Yeah. Well, didn't we start the KTPF and then shortly afterwards? So we come up to the 7th year as well?
Yes.
Of the KTPF.
It's also the 7th year of the KTPF.
Yeah, not necessarily
not
of the show, but the KTPF.
But keeping the paranormal friendly as well. So, because we started it all at the same time. We've been going 7 years as a website, more than anything, obviously.
It was. That's when it started, yeah.
Yeah, and due really to the animosity that I'd actually seen prior to that with other groups, whilst being in another group, and the animosity that we got when we started our own group. Mm-hmm. So I decided to put all my energies into the KTPF, and it's been 7 years.
It has.
Can't believe it. We found a few out there that are proud to be KTPF, like
we
us.
have. We found quite a few that were having problems where we were able to give advice as well.
Yeah.
One in particular, they were actually up in Glasgow, weren't they?
Yes.
They were having trouble with the groups saying you can't use that because it's copyrighted.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you cannot copyright words.
No, this is it. We had a bit similar problem down here.
You can copyright documents, but not words.
Yeah.
And for them to
and geographical words at that. Apparently.
Yes, it was.
So I think they've gone by the wayside now.
Yes, they seem to have disappeared.
Yeah. Thank you both for creating KTPF. Thank you, Ace Paradox.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I think now the leading Scottish group is Lanarkshire Paranormal.
It is.
from what I've heard.
And the other group was actually in their neck of the woods.
Yeah,
It was
Glasgow Shadow Seekers.
Glasgow Shadow Seekers.
Yeah, because they contacted us about using.
Yes, they asked
Shadow
permission,
Seekers.
didn't they?
Yeah.
So, as long as you put Glasgow on the front of it, we don't mind.
Yeah. So, but I think they've disappeared. They've gone by the wayside.
They seem to have disappeared.
Yeah. So, but now that there's an overall body for Glasgow and surrounding areas. So, talking about Scotland, I was asked a question yesterday.
You was. Go on.
Yeah.
What was
Have
it?
I ever done Edinburgh Castle?
The castle?
And I said no.
I'm not sure you can do
That's
the actual
what I
castle.
said to him. I don't think I can. The one that would know would be Steph and Jan, whether you can do the castle or not.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, they're both in the chat room tonight, so they can tell us.
Yeah, maybe you could come back.
Is it possible to actually do Edinburgh Castle?
Yes.
A word? Which word?
A word? Which word? Apparently, you can copyright a work if it's a business name. Right, okay.
Yeah. But that's not classed as copyright. That's classed as something else, isn't it? Yeah. No, I can't remember the word name for it. No, can't think.
So, let us know whether you can do Edinburgh Castle, Lanarkshire Paranormal, or whether you've tried and they've said yes or no. Okay, so we've just been told that our guest is ready.
Go for it.
So we're going to give him a call. He's online ready, so here we go. There's a company called Hello? 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 Jerret? Is there anybody there? Hello? I can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Where's your mic? I'm not seeing you at the moment. I mean, I'm not hearing you at the moment. Oh, hello.
Check one. Okay, there we go.
That's better. Good evening.
Okay.
Good
Good
morning.
evening.
Just a quick thing
Good
before I
morning,
lose
yes.
it on here.
Yeah.
For our
2 seconds, Jerry.
for our guests that are actually listening, Jan's just come back from up there in Edinburgh and says Edinburgh Castle is really expensive to hire, and they put so many restrictions on your investigation. It's not really worth doing.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you for that. Right, Jerret, I'm glad that we've got you now.
Yes.
Okay, welcome to the KTPF. What, we on morning there?
We are 5:30 in the morning here for me, yes.
All right. Are you working today?
Later on in the evening, or later on in the morning, sorry. Yeah.
Right. Now, just to give people an idea about yourself, who is Jerret Gardner? I believe you was in journalism?
Yeah, I was a military journalist for a number of years, and before that I worked with, this is shortly after college, I worked with a non-profit organization that, there was an umbrella group called the American Anthropological Research Foundation, and underneath that group there was various independent researchers that pretty much had their own agenda, and I ended up working for an individual who was interested in discovering what the pyramids were all about, and so I was a videographer at the time, and this was 1997.
Yeah.
And that was my first trip there, and that's how I got my first experience going to the pyramids and finding out some of the first alternative theories that were being floated at the time. And later I was a military journalist, and then after that I decided it was basically time to go back and do some photography and then write my book about it.
Mm-hmm. So you're now in Japan. I believe you're a teacher there.
Right.
What's the subject you're teaching?
English.
English.
Yeah.
Okay, to the Japanese, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and how long have you been in Japan?
Since I got out of the military, I've been here about 8 years now.
Really? So it's quite a while, isn't it? And
Yes.
you enjoy doing that?
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So, and is there any finishing time for you, or are you there for the duration, as far as you know?
We are actually in a very busy time right now. My wife's pregnant. We're gonna have a daughter soon.
Oh, wow.
We just
Congratulations.
So thank you. We just bought a house, so yeah, I'm here for the long duration. Yeah.
That's great, and yes, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Right, so let's get on to the topic that we're here to discuss. Now,
Okay.
you want to tell us about your new book, which is what the Egyptians don't want us to know. So what don't they want us to know? We've read some of your stuff, haven't we, Steve?
Yeah, we've seen some of it when you're going on about the energy thing, the pyramid that a friend of yours has made up, which relates to the main pyramid.
Right. Yeah, that was the individual I worked with first, and that was what got me interested into, researching further into the pyramids themselves.
Yeah.
And his name was Larry Hunter, and he had a patent design for solar energy reflector and collector device.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the Great Pyramid itself, and unlike all the other pyramids, the sides of the Great Pyramid are not flat. They're actually concaved. And this has been mentioned here and there. And most recently in a video called The Revelations of the Great Pyramid, where they mention that the Great Pyramid sides are actually canted inward, and which makes it actually 8-sided instead of 4-sided. It's a little more complex than that, but basically each side is canted inward 28.3 inches or something like that, close to that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of a normal concave surface, like I believe the Parthenon is concave slightly to make the appearance of a flat surface or a flat side, but instead of like a curved arc, this is more like an indentation. So it has the appearance of, if it had its casing stone replaced. Right now the casing stone's been ripped off. There's only a couple blocks left. But if it had it all replaced, you would see that there was a definite triangular facets that were indented. So what this does, each side having this geometry built into it, would reflect the sunlight to a focal point somewhere off in the distance.
Yeah.
A close distance, away. Maybe I'm guessing here, but a few hundred yards or so. In regards to the south side, it would actually be, much farther. It would be like a mile, because of the way the Earth sits and where the sun sits. Yeah. The south side, south reflecting light would actually switch from summer to winter to be a lot longer, like anywhere between 1 mile to 2 miles long. But so these 4 focal points of light, like I said, you need to replace the casing blocks, which have been said to have been made of white Tura limestone, and like I said, a lot of them are still there. Not a lot. There's maybe 5 or something that are still there, and so you can see the difference in color. The outside layer is made of a much different, much whiter, much stronger, more durable limestone. And the color is the important part. Getting as white as possible, it would, help your chances of reflecting sunlight, all the more better. And so if you replace that in your mind's eye, and you can see the indented geometry, and then you place the sun over it, and you have these 4 focal points that are reflecting off of it, then you have an immense amount of sunlight captured into basically a ball, like a plasma ball of light.
Yeah.
And the surface area of each side of the Great Pyramid is enormous. And anyone walking through that would, just get incinerated. There's one of the first solar plants that was built in California, and this was out in Barstow, and I had a chance to tour it a long time ago. And the basic system there is there's a central tower, and then there's an array of mirrors, like hundreds of mirrors that surround the tower. And the light comes from the sun, goes down to the mirrors, and then goes back up to where they focus it to one or two focal points next to the tower, the top of the tower. And at the top of the tower, they got like a molten salt reactor, which basically it's a heat transfer system where the heat gets transferred from the plasma light that's been focused next to the tower into the molten salt mixture. And then that molten salt, which is now heated, gets pumped down under the ground so they can store it during the nighttime, so then they can reheat the water to make steam for, to pump these or turn these electric turbines.
Mm.
So they can create electricity at night, basically through the solar collection of the day. But there's so much wasted energy in this system. When they put those, when they first put those focal points, they put them directly on the tower.
Yeah.
And there was this was the story. There was 4-inch thick steel plating, and it just instantly buckled the 4-inch steel plating and destroyed the top of the tower. So hence the reason they needed to back the light off of the tower. There's a space of a gap of about, I'm guessing again, about a foot or a foot and a half.
Yeah. And
in between that gap, that's where the heat transference is taking place. But in regards to the Great Pyramid, this is Larry Hunter's idea when he saw the white surface area, the intentional indentation that was designed into each side of the Great Pyramid, and the Great Pyramid only, not the Second Great Pyramid or Third Great Pyramid. He automatically had an idea that whoever built this, could have been reflecting sunlight on a massive scale and then collecting it and redirecting it and utilizing it.
Yeah.
So that's where he began to try and figure out, how that worked.
So for those of us that are not too technically minded, it's a similar thing to what the Egyptians used to do with actual mirrors to create light in dark spaces.
Right.
They bounce them off from mirror to mirror.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, the Egyptians might have known about the actual use of the Great Pyramid, reflecting light, and that might have given them the start. Oh, hey, we can do that too, so to speak.
Yeah. So it says here in your notes that they wanted to direct the light from the sun to the stellar zone in between the Sphinx's pores.
This comes from Ahmed Shire, and he was one of the first individuals I met when I went there. He was a character who was basically pivotal in the research work of Larry Hunter, and he used to be the night watchman for the Sphinx.
Yeah.
So when the whole Giza Plateau shuts down, this was before the wall was built. There's a wall that surrounds the whole area now, but there's still guards and stuff that watch it. But before that, it was all relatively open. There was just, you have your random military guard here and there. And so he was in charge of watching the Sphinx for over 30 years. So there's other stories that come from him, but his son was a friend of mine. So I got to chat with his father after. He had already quit that job, but I got to chat with his father basically after working on the plateau. And one of the stories, because he used to be, in his youth, he was a Bedouin desert Arab, basically, traveling by, he knew what time it was just by looking at the sun, and he'd travel long distances across the desert to, get this or that. And anyway, he was telling me basically some of the old stories, because at that point in time he was already, really old. So one of the stories he relayed to me was that the stone between the Sphinx's paws, there used to be a series of mirrors that were located around the pyramids, and they were used to direct sunlight. And every day at noon, the sunlight from these mirrors was directed in between the Sphinx's paws, and the stone would get, I guess, would get hot and then begin to open, and there would be a door behind it, and the genie would come out once a day.
Right.
And again, this is like a super old story that he was told that when he was a boy from his father. This is, so how long this story goes back, I don't know, but it's not anything recent.
No.
And so, that really sparks your imagination, and in combination with Mr. Hunter's discovery, this was, to be fair, Napoleon and his men actually found the cornerstones, where the cornerstones of the pyramid used to lock into place on the foundation. There's a big hole there now. The cornerstones used to fit into the foundation, so when they took the cornerstones out, they left a big imprint, a big footprint, and there's 4 of them for the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
Well, the cornerstone, and then where the center of the pyramid is, they're not in a straight line to the next cornerstone. It actually goes in and then back out again. That's what makes the concave feature, and that's what Napoleon discovered. Napoleon's men, actually.
Yeah.
That the Great Pyramid was actually, concaved by 1 meter on each side. So that's where it all started, basically. And so when Larry came up with the idea of the solar reflector and collector device, and then you hear the story of the Bedouins talking about mirrors being located around.
Yeah.
Because for Larry's patent, the next secondary system is to have at least 4 mirrors to redirect the sunlight, to catch those 4 focal points, and then redirect the sunlight to basically the apex of the Great Pyramid.
Now, what we're saying about the pyramids, are we saying that they weren't built by the Egyptians?
In my mind, yes, and everything that I've, come to look at and come to terms with, that they most likely moved into buildings that were already there.
Yeah.
The evidence that supports that is, in volume 1 of my book, I talk about tidal erosion patterns that were discovered on the casing blocks of the second Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is basically about 1/3 of the block material has been ripped away through erosion, and traditionally it's been thought to have been all wind and sand erosion. But the problem with wind and sand erosion is it tends to bury the item that you are trying to erode.
Right.
Like if you look at old pictures of the Sphinx, it's buried up to its waist, and the paws are completely covered. Basically the neck is just sticking out of the sand in some photographs.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the same case with the Great Pyramids, and actually wind and sand erosion is quite easy to spot, but this type of erosion that I've seen throughout the years is quite elusive, and the only reason I know about it now is because of Sharif El-Morsi. He's the guy that I wrote the story about in my book. He's the Egyptian researcher that discovered the tidal erosion patterns, and one of them in particular is called Tafoni pitting, and it makes little small spherical holes. You've probably seen it down at the beach if you have some place where there's some sandstone, and the sea spray that constantly bashes the block, or the rock in this case, attacks the weaker part of the block, and then it makes these Swiss cheese-like patterns on the rock. Well, this same pattern was discovered on the second Great Pyramid casing block.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of 3 types of tidal erosion patterns that I detail in the story that were discovered by Sharif El-Morsi that are found around the plateau. and which tells that there was an ancient flood, basically, that came through, and a long-lasting flood that turned the whole area, in Sharif's words, into a tidal basin. So basically, the pyramids were surrounded, for the most part, by a significant amount of seawater from the Mediterranean, and every day the tide would come in and go out, and that would cause the majority of the erosion that you see there today. And so, we know that, traditionally, the Egyptologists say the pyramids were built 4,500 years ago. So, geologists know that there has been no oceanic flood during, that time until now.
Right, okay.
And so the first pyramid, not the first, but the Great Pyramid, which they say was built 4,500 years ago by Khufu, is there has been no oceanic flood to account for those tidal erosion patterns. And that's just one. There's also the conundrum of why did the Egyptians start building with lesser quality materials like sandstone and mud bricks in the later dynasties. And I detail a chapter about that where you can actually see that they were actually restoring the Great Pyramid with mud bricks and white plaster that they would put over the mud bricks to restore the white color. So parts of the blocks and these restorations are thousands of years old. Like, in particular, this one I'm thinking of is, if memory serves me correct, it's on the Second Great Pyramid Temple. And you can see the mud bricks in the photo, and you can see the plaster that's been stuck up against it. And then the block behind it, which is the original limestone block, has a massive amount of erosion on it. And the erosion, you would think, is the reason that they would want to restore it, because it's not a flat surface anymore. It's, got basically rotten away. So you would want to put mud bricks over it, and then you'd put white plaster over that to make it look, basically like its original self again. Basically, that would, like makeup or something like that over it. It's not the same quality work. Because there was no mud bricks being used by the original builders of the Great Pyramid. This is a definite Egyptian. They had no wheel. They had no concept of pi. They had no concept of the golden mean. They were supposed to be illiterate for the most part. So they weren't supposed to be the smartest group of individuals. They only had the use of copper, chisels, and wooden mallets. But when you look at the Great Pyramid and how it was built, mathematicians are finding that they knew whoever built the pyramid knew the concept of pi. They knew the concept of the golden mean. It was utilized in the construction of it, and many other concepts. So the two just don't add up. Like, when you look at the Egyptians and what they know, the knowledge that they had, you look at the knowledge that's coming out of the Great Pyramid, they don't match up. So that's another set of evidences that point to the Egyptians as not having built the Great Pyramids. If you remember the time when there's a lot that was painted by Napoleon's artists at the time when they went over there, you could see statues like heads still sticking out of the sand here and there in random places, like bits and pieces, like a huge arm or a hand statue just laying over here. Almost like a huge flood just went through the area and busted up a bunch of stuff, moved it from here to there, and then after the waters receded, the Sahara Desert moved in, and then you have these statue pieces like here and there. If you go to Luxor Temple, it's a sandstone temple, and it's been known to have been built by the Egyptians during I don't know the exact dynasty, but it's the later dynasties, somewhere around 18 or 20, and which makes it roughly 1,000 or 2,000 years old. So I don't know the exact date on that, but they have these huge granite statues of what's called Ramses sitting out front, and they're enormous statues, and one of them, the head is off, and it sits next to the statue.
Yeah.
And this is the old style construction that's typical of whoever built the Great Pyramids. but these statues are right next to the sandstone temple. And you can't look at the two as being the same technology. Like, sandstone is very easy to cut. When you touch the temple now, it just crumbles to the touch.
Yeah.
And the granite is incredibly hard, incredibly dense, incredibly heavy. And to have a 3-story statue of a human and the details on it, be basically perfect, a mirror image of each other. And then they're actually damaged. They're cracked. They're, very few of them are in good condition. So what I think happened there is they discovered these things in a different location, laying out in the desert or sitting next to some other place, and then they transported them to, make their new sandstone temple look even more decadent, I guess.
Yeah. We got a question in the chat room for you from Andy. He would like to know, what evidence apart from tidal erosion do you have to come up with this theory?
Okay. Like I said, there's the restoration, which there's many kinds. There's the mud brick restoration.
Yeah, because the Nile's not salty, is it?
Right. Well, there's salt too. There's salt that's exuding from the blocks. I have a couple photographs in my book of that. There's huge salt crystals that can be seen sticking to the outside surface of the blocks at the Giza pyramids and elsewhere. And they're the ones that I'm thinking of right now are on a low-level blocks, which is where you would expect them to be if it would absorb the most amount of salt water. The Egyptologist argument in regards to the salt is, well, these were natural limestone blocks that were cut from the foundation, and the foundation used to be a fossilized ocean floor. Everybody knows that. It was before the pyramids were built, and then when the ocean went away, they cut the limestone into blocks and they built the pyramid, and then the salt started exuding from the blocks. Well, there's another chapter about an individual called Joseph Davidovitz who basically discovered that around about 70% of the blocks are not cut from the foundation. They were a type of poured cement, a limestone cement. And this was recently tested by a group of researchers from Cairo University. They went to the pyramids and with some sort of instrumentation, they were able to check the north and south poles of the blocks. And if the blocks were poured in place, for example, they would make a wood mold and then pour the limestone concrete inside. Wait for it to harden and release the mold, and then pour another block next to it, and then they keep making their rounds around that level. Once they did that level, they move up a level, and they repeat the process again. So if they were pouring all of these blocks, the north and south poles would all be aligned in the same direction. If the blocks were cut from the foundation and transported, you would think that the builders would not. They would be moving the blocks all different, ways, and then they wouldn't be keeping track of the natural north and south pole of this block. They would have no reason to. They just need the block. So by the time the block goes from the quarry to the pyramid and is placed next to its other blocks, the north and south poles of all these blocks would be in different locations, east and west, north and south, completely random. Well, what they found is that about 70 to 75% of the blocks that they tested, the poles were all running north to south, which would say that the blocks were poured cement to support his theory. And so that was just some more evidence that supports his theory. But people need to understand that if they're going to understand the salt that is exuding from the blocks. There's a big potential that these blocks were poured concrete, so therefore the salt that's exuding from the blocks would be more evidence to support the flood. So there's that. There's the restoration, like I said. There's what looks like Khufu's restoration, which is basically the story of Khufu is he built the Great Pyramids 2500 BC, and he was a slave driving tyrant. By the time Herodotus showed up, 500 BC, to talk to the Egyptians and how did you build the Great Pyramid, the story was, Khufu built the pyramid and he was a real asshole basically, and forced us to work really hard and long hours, and it took 20 years to build, and blah blah blah. Well, there's very little evidence to support that other than the restoration work that is there. Now, potentially, he could have spent 20 years in, restoring it. There could be some translation, problems between Herodotus, the Greek, and then the Egyptians that were living there at the time. And then, but by the time that he was there, there was a good amount of years separation between, the supposed building of Khufu. And this material is this is what Mark Leonard discovered. Actually, it's he has made no distinction between the mortar, the original mortar that the builders used, which is a limestone mortar, which is found quite prevalently. It was used, to patch holes and to put in between blocks. So they did have a limestone cement. It's quite clear. You can see it all over the Great Pyramid's core blocks. I have photographs of that in my book too. Mm-hmm. And so underneath the blocks, there's limestone. In some cases, some of the blocks are fit right on top of each other. But when they made a mistake, there's liberal amounts of limestone mortar being placed, wherever they needed it. And probably this limestone mortar is the same limestone. I say mortar, but it's the same quality, the same hardness as the stone itself. So that's probably the cement that was used to make the block. But when they made a mistake, they had to go and patch up an area, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's another type of mortar that's found, too, and it's a pink color. And Mark Leonard, to his credit, has acknowledged that it is a gypsum mortar, which is mixed with sand, and they take gypsum rock and they burn it, so then they can crush it into powder. So they mix that with water and then sand and maybe something else. I don't remember. But and then it makes basically a plaster of Paris. And the burning process resulted in large amounts of small pieces of charcoal that would get into the mix. And this charcoal from the wood fire that got into the gypsum mortar, that was what was carbon tested by Mark Leonard. So there's this gypsum mortar that's found here and there. It's not used very widely. You can see it all over the plateau, but in comparison to the limestone mortar, which is the same quality as what the builders used, and which was used most often, it's totally out of the ballpark. The builders of the Great Pyramid used granite. They used limestone, they used diorite, they used basalt, and a few other hard stones. They didn't use sandstone. They didn't use sand mortar, a gypsum mortar. They didn't use gypsum. So this is another sign that this is the work of the Egyptians, a very simple mortar that you can make and use. And so when they tested the carbon that was found in this mortar, it tested to around the time of Khufu. So for them, this irrelevant mortar that actually is out of place should not even be there.
Right.
When you look at the materials that the original builders were using, this is what is used as proof that the Egyptians built the pyramid.
Right. So you're saying that they didn't, yeah? So
no. They restored it, and and that's obvious. You can walk around the Great Pyramid as a tourist, and you can see that. You can see the mud bricks, you can see the white plaster, you can see this pink gypsum mortar that I'm mentioning if you look close enough.
So what do you think? Who built? Do you have an idea who may have built them, and if so, why there? What's so special about that part of the of this earth, and when do you think they were built?
That's the $1 million question there. There's a lot of ideas, and I don't know how much your viewers are aware of them, but I can maybe touch on a few of them. The most popular recently is a lot of people want to say 10,000 years ago, basically because of the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a Turkish farmer was walking on his land one day and saw this stone sticking out of the ground and decided to start digging.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, there was a huge, some sort of complex, a building complex with these towering stone towers that were obviously man-made. They got flat surfaces. There's some hieroglyphics that were discovered that of animals and stuff. And this was said to have predated the Sumerian civilization, which is said to have been about 6,000 years ago. So this, for them, this dated, the experts said it dated to 10 to 12,000 years ago. So at that time, scientists said that people were basically hunters and gatherers, and just Stone Age people that are traveling around and not really sitting in one particular place to make a society and live and whatever. So this kind of goes against the grain of that idea, because somebody had to sit there for a large amount of time and as a society and carve all these stone towers and make these structures. And there's, so far they've found 10 or 12, but there's underneath the ground with ground penetration radar, they found a significant amount more that they got to still dig up. And when you compare this to the work of the Great Pyramids, there's no comparison. The only thing that's comparable is it is a semi-hard stone. I don't know the exact material of the stone. It hasn't been said publicly yet, to my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
But it appears to be a relatively hard stone. The flat surfaces look good, but they don't look perfect, like the Great Pyramid flat surfaces do. It looks like an imitation of the style, trying to do large blocks with flat surfaces kind of thing. But other than that, there's really nothing to link whoever built Göbekli Tepe to the Great Pyramids. So there's another popular date which was put forth by Zecharia Sitchin and his work, if anybody's familiar with that, where he talks about the Sumerian culture a lot and how the most popular is like aliens came out of the sky, created human beings around 200,000 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and used the human beings as slaves to mine gold for their atmosphere or something to this extent. And so his dating is actually, he's put forth that the pyramids were built somewhere around 200,000, 250,000 years ago, and that these were the individuals that had them built. Again, there's little to no evidence that suggests that. What we do have is a really good book that was written by Christopher Dunn. He's mentioned in my book a couple times. He has come up with the idea that the Great Pyramid was a power generator. And his idea, or it's not a patent yet, but his idea, his theory, is that the inside of the Great Pyramid functioned as an energy collector, and it changed one type of energy into another type of energy, and basically the end result would be a microwave energy beam that could be transferred and manipulated around the globe if need be. And so his idea has to do with the inside of the Great Pyramid, and the guy I worked with has to do with the reflection of the sunlight on the outside of the Great Pyramid. And the two ideas could be correct in my mind, because they're dealing with two different, one's on the inside, one's on the outside, and there's a lot of missing parts. If we're dealing with a flood that happened, we're not going to find a lot of this stuff.
No.
So the evidence of there being a flood, the restoration by the Egyptians, this building having mathematics that the Egyptians did not have. There's even more talking about the advanced machining that was going on there that the Egyptians did not have. There's core drill holes that are in the hardest stones, like basalt.
Mm-hmm.
And the Egyptians had copper chisels and wooden mallets. And for years, the Egyptologists have looked at these core drill holes Actually, they don't look at it. They walk by it, and they on purposely, because they don't want to have to explain it. When some outsider points it out and says, "Hey, look at this core drill hole. How was it built? Or how did the Egyptians do this?" They would just say, "Oh yeah, copper chisels, wooden mallets," because that's the only thing that they've found is a copper chisel and a wooden mallet.
Yeah.
But anybody in engineering knows that you don't drill a core drill hole with a copper chisel and a wooden mallet. And then you got saw marks that have been found as early as 1880. This was found by Flinders Petrie, who is one of the first Egyptologists. For all intents and purposes, he was the first Egyptologist. He's been called the father of modern Egyptology. He's the one that discovered all these core drill holes, and he discovered saw marks on the granite box that's inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. And he said that the saw marks that he discovered there were from a saw that cut the sides of the box, and the saw must have been 9 feet in diameter. And so this is a huge saw that has not been discovered. There are core drills that have not been discovered.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I was just listening to what you're saying. My husband's Steve's here. He's got a question for you.
There's
Okay.
because of the fact that we've got very similar pyramids in the Americas. There's a theory being put forward that maybe it has something to do with Atlantis and their advanced technology.
Well, in my mind, I don't know what I know what Atlantis is, and I know what they've said about it and everything, and the legends and stuff. And I would agree to a certain extent. If you're dealing with a civilization that got wiped off the earth, whoever survived, had to, basically run for the hills and whatnot. And then, scientists have said if something were to happen to our society, something as simple as running out of gasoline, running out of fossil fuels, you would see horses that are pulling cars, down the street, as transportation. But if you were to look at it as a child who grew up into that society, you would think that they designed, the horse to pull the car, when in actuality the car used to run on fossil fuels. And the point I'm trying to make is, our society, if something were to happen to destroy, a significant part of it, then everybody would revert basically back to, maybe hunting and gathering, or small, homestead farming situations, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would have these rotting and deteriorating power generators all around the world that would, be stripped of their most valuable parts, be, reused for, whatever purposes, but not the original purpose for what they were intended.
Yeah.
And all this would take place within, 100 years, or less than 100 years, actually, from what they've said.
Right.
So, and then, you get a few generations, and then, perhaps the knowledge even gets lost. It depends on how bad the devastation is. If it takes away your books and your computers and, all that stuff. So, this is the thing, is it's so old that, potentially it could be linked to this Atlantis story. The guy that I was working with actually thinks that there might have been an old world order, basically, to counter, George Bush's New World Order sort of thing. And hence the reason for the New World Order is there was potentially an old world order, and this goes into the symbolism that's, placed on the dollar bill, which has the truncated pyramid with the hovering, glowing eye above it, and potentially somebody in the know knows that there used to be an old world order, and they're trying to formulate a new world order. This is where this comes from.
Right.
But anyway, you were saying?
Yeah. Steve was on about the.
Yeah, but I was wondering, in your heart of hearts, how do you think they were built, and how old do you think they are?
I think they're really old. The math that's been used, like I said, just to give you an example, the size of the pyramid was built in relation to the size of the Earth. And what that means is they had a measurement called what has been called a pyramid inch.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I get this correct. The size of the size of the Great Pyramid, the height of the Great Pyramid, is in direct proportion to the diameter of the Earth from pole to pole. It's 1/500,000,000th. Excuse me, sorry, I got that wrong. The pyramid inch is 1/500,000,000th the diameter of the Earth from pole to pole. So from North Pole to South Pole, if you were to break it up into fractions, there would be 500 million pyramid inches. Okay, so this measure was used to build the Great Pyramid. So the inch that they were using is actually a fraction of the pole-to-pole diameter of the Earth. And this has been discovered, back in the late 1700s, early 1800s.
Okay.
So they knew this. What this means is they knew the diameter of the Earth from pole to pole, which we didn't discover and measure, which the United States Navy measured in 1979 or something like that, and they came out with a measurement of how many inches of our inches, which was 1.4999. It was really close to the original, 1/500,000,000. And you have that, and you add in the math that was used. They knew the golden mean. They knew pi. It's a perfect pi pyramid. Its location on the Earth is in the direct center of the Earth's landmass, which means the direction north and south covers the most amount of land on the Earth, and the direction east and west covers the most amount of land on the Earth.
Right.
So that particular spot was no accident, which means that they knew the circumference of the Earth. So we're not talking about Neanderthals here,
No.
So we're talking about pre-Neanderthal people. Whoever was, and if you're going back more than 200,000 years, the Homo sapiens sapiens are supposed to be, according to modern science, showing up on the scene around 200,000 years ago, which, matches, Zecharia Sitchin's predictions almost exactly of when, supposed aliens came here and created humans. And then if you're going back further than that, you're talking that humans did not build it. So this is, some other race of people.
Yeah. Dave Lloyd's in the chat room. He's asking, when you talk about the building and the cores drilling and everything, he said, do you think or do you believe that there was alien technology used? And just to add to that,
It was not by aliens.
Are you saying that do you think that it all means something from outer space or another dimension?
Well, at this point, anything's possible, but what I think, when you look at the evidence, I think that it is possible that whoever built it had the potential to travel space.
Yeah.
And to give you a comparison, I once watched a documentary from NASA, and they were talking about what would happen if we went to Mars. And they said the first thing that we would do is we would build a power generator. And they would say, well, we would have to use local materials because we don't want to take these materials, all the way across space. It'd be too heavy, too expensive, and probably impossible. And so they would use local materials to do their best to build a power station. And the next thing they would do is build an antenna, a communication station, and then a landing station so they can bring more ships in and blah, blah, blah. Well, this is exactly what you kind of see here. What you have two individuals that say the Great Pyramid is a power generator.
Mm-hmm.
Its shape and its material is limestone. Its shape is of a pyramid, and if you look at a normal satellite dish, a normal satellite dish has the four rods that go to a single point, which make a triangle, and then there's the dish that's underneath it, right?
Yeah.
Well, that catches the signal, and then the 4 points the 4 rods that go to a point actually send the signal. Well, the great limestone is conductive, so you potentially have a huge antenna that could have been used if you were able to power it up and send a signal, because limestone is a conductive stone, and it'll flow right through it. And what you have is natural materials that were being used on a large scale. And when you look at the other pyramids, it looks like that they started small and then started making bigger and better pyramids, which is kind of what you would expect if a small contingent of people arrived. They would need to build a power station, and they would start with one of the older pyramids that are found on site, maybe near Abu Sir or something like that. And then eventually, when their numbers arose, they would strive to do bigger and greater things. It could be that, or it could be a natural progression by people that were already here. But what it looks like is to the level of technology that they arose to, that they most certainly might have had the ability to travel space to the moon or etc. That this civilization potentially had technology that we don't have, that we don't understand right now. To give you an example, is for your listener that was asking about the core drilling and stuff.
Yeah.
The core drill, the first one, the hole that was found, there was Flinders Petrie found the core that actually fit into it. So it was broken and then pulled out and discarded. He found it inside the Great Pyramid, and the core has a line that goes around it from the tool itself, a spiral line that goes around and around and around all the way to the end of the core. And he counted the lines in this spiral, and I have a story about this in my book. I can't exactly 60. That's right, 60 lines in 1 inch. And in his words, this was a rate of plowing through quartz and feldspar that is astonishing. So that means it would sink into the granite 1 inch every 60 revolutions. Right now, we have a diamond-tipped drill bit on a motor that spins 900 revolutions per minute, and it only cuts into granite 1 inch in 5 minutes. So this device, according to Petrie, would have cut 1 inch into granite in 60 revolutions. So whatever the tool that was cutting was incredibly sharp and made to just cut through it like butter, basically.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything like that right now.
No.
Going back to what you said about maybe the people that was already here, if that's the case,
Right.
What happened to all the technology? Why did we just lose it?
Well, what it looks like is there's a massive flood, like I said, and a long-lasting one. And the guy that I used to work with, he was open to the idea that these things could be even millions of years old, and we're talking about 65 million years old when an asteroid impact hit and killed off what we know as the dinosaurs, and shifted the Earth's axis a significant amount, shifting oceans, causing massive amounts of chaos and destruction. Something along those lines, an asteroid impact. There's the Egyptian legends, and the Egyptians, to their credit, in my opinion, they moved into these buildings that were already there. They probably were able to crack the hieroglyphic language, and that's why they, at least part of it, and that's why they were utilizing it themselves, and they found as much of the old stories as you could possibly dig up. And some of the myths and legends of the gods of Osiris and Ra and Set and so on. One of the myths and legends talks about the creation of Osiris, Set, Horus, Thoth, and Nephthys and Isis. And so there's the 5 of them. And in order to create these 5 gods, Ra needed to create 5 extra days on Earth. So presumably, before these gods were created, and this is all myth and legend, so the actual meaning could have something more tangible than this surface story that I'm talking about, and this is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Is presumably that at some time in Earth's history, the year was 360 days, and then this legend talks about how 5 days were added to create these new gods, and so it's 360 to 364.25 actually.
Yeah.
And so this is to create 4.25 extra days on the Earth. You have to have a massive impact to hit the Earth to offset its rotation around the sun. It's not an easy thing to do, and this is just a legend of from Egypt about the gods, who they don't even know how old these people were. They were legendary when they got there.
Yeah. I want to go on to talk about these stories that you've heard from Ahmed Shire. Yeah, if I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
And especially we know you've told us that he was been a watchman for over 30 years. Okay,
Right.
and I believe that also he bear with me, I just get my notes. He also was involved in the Orion Pyramid theory, apparently. He was involved in that somewhere along the line. But your stories that he's told you. Now we're talking about another arc of Covenant.
Right.
Could you tell us some of these stories, Jerret?
Yeah. I pull up my notes as well, just so I don't. Yeah. When I met.
Get to these lesser known paranormal activities that's been happening within the pyramids itself and around. And
Yeah, the main story, which this is what I heard when I first went to Egypt, and this was what. I was a videographer at the time, so I was, holding a camera and listening to the conversations from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And then you go to another individual, and we'd interview that individual, and we're trying to cross-check the story, and lo and behold, some of the story would cross-check out. And so these individuals, for example, one is the guy we're talking about, Mr. Ahmed Shire, the Sphinx watchman, and then another was a head of the antiquities police. He was an antiquities police, the head of the antiquities police. And so these are major players on the Giza Plateau when you want to, get accurate information. Well, the story of Ahmed Shire was one day, basically, many times actually, people from the United States or Europe these scientists and stuff would sometimes come, and he would be the person to escort them where they need to go. And there was a secret chamber that was discovered. I say discovered, but the locals that live in that village had known about it. At least not all of them, but the old timers, some of the old timers had known how to get to this secret chamber inside the Great Pyramid. For the most part, for them, it's not very interesting. But so then people from the West started becoming interested in it, and these are scientists and whatnot who are being escorted by Mr. Ahmed Shire into the Great Pyramids. And sorry, let me pull up my notes here on that. And so this secret chamber basically is huge. It's below the Great Pyramid, and it's reported to have, walls in excess of 30 feet high. It's a rectangular room. There's a number of large granite columns that stretch the entire length of the floor to the ceiling. On one of the walls on the side, there were these footholds that were chiseled in the wall, so you were able to climb up the wall. And the reason for that is there was another chamber that was up higher, offset from this main chamber. And up here is where all this interesting stuff was supposedly discovered.
Yeah.
And up there, I don't know exactly how many other chambers there are, or too much of what was going on. But this is where Ahmed Shire had basically stopped, and this is where the workers were, or the guests basically were able to climb the wall and go up and do what they needed to do. And up there, what was discovered, what was said to have been discovered, was an Ark of the Covenant presumably in its original location, doing whatever it's supposed to be doing, and then a wall that constantly changed colors, and over time, this story continued over time, and then you get different heads of the antiquities police, and Mr. Hunter would interview every single one of them, as they moved in and out of their position. And he would get a new antiquities police, and he would ask him, "Have you seen this room? And what's inside there? What did you see?" And it would get cross-checked, several times in some cases. And one of the stories was, they got a video camera. It was first discovered in the 1960s, but as of 1990s, there was apparently a video camera that was sitting there recording this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this changing color of this wall. And then it gets even stranger, where there's like supposedly there was a body of Osiris that was discovered up there, and has some sort of a force field around it, and that, yeah. So, and this has been cross-checked again with like several individuals, and they tell a similar story that that this secret chamber is in existence. And so this force field is rumored to have said to, if anybody who touched it, it'd just kill them basically.
So we've got a connection with Stanley Kubrick, haven't we, and Arthur C. Clarke, and also Neil Armstrong.
Right. Let's see. Eventually, in the 1960s, there were these rumors that were started to spread about this secret chamber. So there's basically individuals like me over time that would go there and make friends with the locals, and they would hear these rumors firsthand, and then spread them around the world. So when the secret chamber was discovered, it wasn't kept very secret at all. Like the villagers knew about it. They were telling tourists about it and whatnot. And so in 1968, Stanley Kubrick, he directed his sci-fi hit 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
And which chronicled the discovery of a strange object on Earth that was somehow related to an identical object found on the moon. And those in the know of the Ahmad Shire story began to wonder if both Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, who co-wrote the 2001: Space Odyssey, had somehow been informed of the discoveries of the body, the force field, the wall with the changing colors, and the Ark of the Covenant, and so the collaboration between Kubrick and NASA, the NASA moon landing, which was scheduled for next year, even further cemented these suspicions that there was something going on behind the scenes, possibly relating to this discovery in the Great Pyramid. So when Neil Armstrong finally landed on the moon in 1969, the suspicions had had basically reached a fever pitch. For those again who knew about the secret chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, the body, the force field, and so on. And so shortly after the astronauts' return, this is where the story takes an interesting turn. Ahmad Shire witnessed another particular guest to the Great Pyramids. This is a man who was dressed in a suit arrived, and he was escorted by Ahmad Shire to some of the with some of the other plateau officials into the location of the secret chamber. Ahmad Shire said this man was from the CIA, basically, the American Central Intelligence Agency, and he had with him a suitcase that was handcuffed to his wrist. And so he escorted him into this secret chamber, and then, again, where Ahmad Shire stops is the location where the chiseled footholds are carved into the wall, and then that's where all the VIPs would go up there and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And so when he came back out, the briefcase that was handcuffed to his wrist was no longer there. So that was another part of Ahmad Shire's story. And this again led to more speculation about the real reason for the trip to the moon. Did they find something there? Did they already know something was there and went there to retrieve it? Or and did they use whatever they might have found in some manner to affect the Ark of the Covenant or force field or something like that?
Yeah.
But from what I can think of is being, what I know is true is what Ahmad Shire said. As far as the rumors that get thrown around from the individuals after hearing the stories themselves, the secret chamber is real. What's up there? It's the Ark of the Covenant, the body, the wall with the changing colors. This has been cross-checked several times. There's definitely something up there that these people are talking about. And as far as some guy going there with a briefcase attached to his arm, yeah, that's 100% true. This is the words of the Sphinx watchman, and the secret chamber itself. That's the words of the Sphinx watchman. What is actually up there? That's where the rumor comes from, because the individuals are coming out of there. Some of the individuals were like the heads of the antiquities department. Like they were escorted up there. Just Ahmad Shire was not. he was just basically a guard. But the heads of the antiquities police, who we interviewed, back in '97, they had supposedly seen this firsthand themselves.
Right. Okay. And you've got the story of the jinn.
Yes. Let's see. We talked about that a little bit. This is no, we didn't. Sorry. This was.
We did mention the jinn, but this is another.
Yeah, we're talking. Right.
Yeah.
This was an interesting story that after we were done, it was '97 or '98.
Mm-hmm.
After we were done, researching the plateau, basically, we were walking through the village, and there was a couple of individuals that had a shop, and they invited us in their shop for tea, and so, which is a common, thing that they do. And so we joined them inside, and over the course of drinking some tea, a conversation sparked up. I don't know who started it, but and probably it was me. I might have asked about if you heard anything strange or seen anything strange, happening, during the course of your life here, mm-hmm. blah blah blah. And one of these men starts to detail a story about how he was basically hired by an individual to dig underneath somebody's house for antiquities. And let's see, let me get my notes here. Let's see. So it's basically illegal digging through the floor of somebody's house nearby, and underneath the whole village, there's basically, there's still tombs and chambers and stuff that the Egyptians actually built, and there's actually stuff that's related to the original construction of the pyramids, mm-hmm. and whoever built them, and it lies underneath the village. So every house is a potential gold mine, and so a lot of times that they'll dig through their house and in order to find some antiquities that they can sell to the black market. Mm. So this individual was hired by an individual to dig in a house like this. So let's see here. There was another story recently about there were some homes that were nearby the Great Pyramids, and they were built over some ancient tombs, and there were these boys in 2011 who died because of a collapse that happened. And so this is part of the illegal digging that's going on there. Well, the first man that got hired by this individual, the guy that's talking to us, he said there were a total of 5 diggers, including himself, mm-hmm. and they were all chanting something that he was not familiar with, like some song or some chant or something, and he was doing the best he could to fake the words, because he didn't know, what they were singing. He didn't want to feel out of place, and so the leader or the foreman of the group was outside the hole at all times, and the man later recalled that he was a Sudanese man, not Egyptian, and that this was probably the language that was being used in the chant. Mm-hmm. And well, during the course of their digging, the man said his shovel hit a sarcophagus which contained a mummy of a child. And at that point, everybody stopped digging, and the foreman was called over. And the man then began to say that something took control of his right hand, and his hand was randomly, retracting and reaching out and trying to grab, himself or somebody else. Some really spooky behavior that, really freaked him out, and he began to scream and yell to everyone to let him out of the hole. And after he forced his way out of the hole, he ran to his house, back home to his brother, and he then frantically, told the story to his brother while basically, begging for his help. And at this point, the two men began reading verses from the Quran, and that was basically their last hope to, have this behavior, his involuntary, arm moving to try and get it to stop. He then said after about 5 minutes of reading, he felt what he called the spirit, basically leave his arm. And the man later found out from some of the village elders that the Sudanese foreman and the other Sudanese workers were basically all in a plot to contact a jinn or genie, and that's what they basically call a genie or a spirit.
Yeah.
And the chant that they heard was some sort of protection chant for the workman, and that was intentionally not taught to him as to make him a sort of bait for the jinn. So some sort of trading chip or something like that. And the foreman was most likely going to use the jinn and to command it for some nefarious purpose or for some kind of personal gain. And the trading point, I guess, again, was that man that I was talking to. And I then began to ask him, how would you use a jinn, for this purpose, and, to make a wish or something like that. And then the man began to tell me, the basic protocol basically is you need some kind of mercury in order to protect you from the jinn and to also use as a bargaining chip as well. And the jinn apparently wants this kind of mercury to help him get some of his past life back, some years back on his past life or something like that. So if there is no mercury, you can still offer a human soul as a substitute, they said. So this is where this man's actual purpose was came into light. He was the bargaining chip basically. And then the man began to tell me that this was the reason that he was hired to do the digging. So, so that was, his story of being in contact with, some sort of, spirit that took over his arm and whatnot. But
it's really interesting stories, I must admit, because obviously when it comes to things like this, people have got their own stories to tell, and basically there's too much, for me, there's too much coincidence if somebody else has got a similar story. So it,
right.
It must be true. If they're not known to each other, if you understand.
Right. I've heard other stories about the mercury, and I think it's red mercury is what they want, but the mercury was used by the Egyptians as part of the embalming process of mummies.
Yeah.
And this is often the reason why, or this is when said is the reason why tomb robbers would take the mummy as well, because this mercury was worth something. So there's rumors of some very high people in high places. I don't want to name any names right now, but that are doing some secret ceremonies, let's say, in and around or under the pyramids, utilizing this mercury to try and contact genies. And this comes from the villagers themselves, that they hear and see everything that goes on, and what comes in, what comes out, So when a group of people go there and and they don't come out until like the sun comes up, that sort of thing. They're carrying strange implements and whatnot.
Yeah. So Jerret, what's next for you? Obviously, you're awaiting the birth of your little girl.
Right.
And but how do you get to research all this whilst being in Japan?
Well, I've been there 4 times, and I basically go whenever it's feasible for me to go and do some more work. I wanted to go back. I probably won't be able to go back for another year at least, but I want to go back and do some more work on the tidal erosion aspect of, try and find more evidences of the tidal erosion around the Giza Plateau to further, understand the big major flooding event that occurred.
Yeah.
So maybe in the next year or so.
Is there a way you can actually find out when the flood actually came about?
Very little, but I have been doing research on the floods that scientists have said have occurred. The furthest one being about 5 million years ago. This is about 10 million years ago. They said the Mediterranean completely evaporated, and the Straits of Gibraltar were holding tight the Atlantic Ocean. And so in the middle of the Mediterranean, there was nothing but a few rivers and a nice, lush landscape, basically. And coincidentally, they found a lot of settlements that are underneath the Mediterranean that they know that are there from earlier civilizations. They don't know how old they are yet because they're unable to bring up the any of the tools or whatever. But so after 10 million years ago, it evaporated. About 5 million years ago, they said that the Straits of Gibraltar finally broke through, and then it created an immediate flood, which rose the sea levels by about 30 feet per day. So that is a massive, flood, which again filled the Mediterranean, and we could presume that if the pyramid was there, it could have, because the Great Pyramid is located not far from the Mediterranean right now. The city of Alexandria in Egypt, part of it is underwater right now from the Mediterranean. They're pulling out granite statues from whenever they were built. So it could have been flooded at this time, and that flood might have been the time that it actually went over and into the Black Sea. But there's that flood. There was many floods that occurred around 10 to 12,000 years ago. Actually, no, let's say around 15 to 10,000 years ago. This is when the end of the last ice age. A lot of floods that were occurring were caused by ice dam failures. The ice was melting, and if you could imagine, it would be melting on the top, and so it would create this lake on top of the glacier, basically. And eventually it would melt down to a certain point, and then the ice wall would then break through, and then all that water would be released onto the land. And they call this an ice dam failure. And there were about 10 or 12 ice dam failure floods around the world that happened, at the end of the last ice age. But for me, that one of those types of floods might not have been enough to create a tidal basin that lasted for many years around the Great Pyramid. Maybe it could, I don't know, but there's those floods, and then you have the one I mentioned, that happened 10 million years ago. But as far as to pinpoint which flood, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, as I say, whatever you've got next plan on doing, whether it be another exploration in Egypt or the future birth of your child, I'd just like to wish you all the best of luck, Jerret, and thank you for contacting us. And,
all right, thank you, Susan.
And hopefully you'll be able to come back to us soon with some more evidence that you may have.
Yeah, I would love to. I would actually also like to say that to your viewers, I recently put Volume 1. The ebook is Volume 1 and Volume 2 are split into 2 parts because of the color photos are very high resolution photos, and Amazon's rules are you can only have a certain amount of megabytes for your ebook. So, so Volume 1, Part 1, I actually put on sale for about $1, and it'll start on the 11th through the 18th. So if anybody's interested in purchasing that for a discounted price, that they can go to Amazon and or they could go to my website and follow the links there. They can go to www.gizanow.com, which is GIZANOW, and I got links that'll take them there for that.
Okay, well, all the best of luck.
All right, thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving if you're doing it in Japan, and a Merry Christmas as well, because that's coming soon. So
yeah, you too. Thank you.
Take care, Jerret. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you. Have
Bye-bye.
a good evening or night or.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Jerret.
Jerret. Okay, well, that was Jerret, and that was his story. I
His
suppose.
interpretation of
Yeah.
what he thinks is happening.
Yeah.
Well, not just him, but
Yeah.
people
So I was a bit when he was saying about the core bore and a sword that's not a sword, a sword that's like got to be 9 feet long, and it sounds something out of this world.
It's probably not 9 feet long. It's 9 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
So you're talking about some form of circular sword that would be needed to actually cut that block
Yeah.
that he was talking about.
So. Well, that's what teachers are like, maybe sometimes. Okay, it's all right. He said he's got a good story, boring voice. I don't know.
That was the
You're
boy.
listening to the KTPF Community Talk Show with Steve and Suzanne Taggart, covering the supernatural, the paranormal, and other strange phenomena to keep the paranormal friendly.
Right, guys. Well, now it's time to give you what's coming up in the next couple of weeks from paranormaleventsforyou.com.
We've got all the news right here. Don't go away.
Fed up of wading through the activities and events that other advertisers include? Find just what you're looking for at paranormaleventsforyou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory.
Right, okay. On the 15th of November, total darkness at Drakelow Tunnels in Kidderminster with Mysterious Paranormal. On the 22nd and 23rd of November, there's the Paracon UK. I'm off from that in a moment. And also on the 29th of November, Lanarkshire Paranormal are at Cockenzie House in Edinburgh, that famous house where Steph saw the apparition one night, wasn't it, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for more details on these and other events, please visit paranormaleventsforyou.com.
So check out the one-stop paranormal directory for more investigations and events, available now. Paranormaleventsforyou.com also offers banner advertising for only £10 per year. See our website for more details. Paranormaleventsforyou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory.
The UK's first ever annual Paracon, November the 22nd and 23rd. This is guaranteed to excite all levels within the paranormal community. This event will showcase some of the world's best paranormal personalities, covering all paranormal genres, including the ultimate paranormal roundtable. There will be stalls, prizes, a charity auction, as well as a VIP party, plus much, much more. Paracon UK's campaign is to unite to honour. Proceeds from this event will go to support the Wounded Warrior Project and Troop Aid. Don't miss out. Visit www.paraconuk.com for details. Again, that's www.paraconuk.com.
Yeah, well, that's all about what's coming on in the next couple of weeks. And I just thanked Jerret, sorry, and he said, "You're welcome and thank you too." And he just wants to know if there'll be a link. So I'll send it to him later. Just let the two men say this. See, it's all live. It's not Memorex though. Right, okay. Well, what I'm going to do is
You do realise there's a good percentage of our audience that wouldn't know what Memorex meant.
I know. I take it you're not on Skype, are you, Stephen? So what we're going to do is we're going to give him a call. Remember we was telling you about a story a couple of weeks ago in the observations where
the press helped themselves.
The press helped themselves to what they assumed was a paranormal story, which it was, but they never contacted the people at the time and to collaborate it or whatever. They just
or check the facts.
Found it on their website and run with it. And
as the press do, they decided to
elaborate,
hike it up a bit.
Yeah. So, right, we're going to contact Steph and from Lanarkshire Paranormal. He's going to tell you all about it himself, I think. So let's just get him on the show. Should be used to this now. He's been on TV. Hello. You all right? Hold on. Let's just make sure everyone can hear you. Can everybody hear him, please? If you can let me know. Tell us your name, Steph. Can you?
I think you need to turn the mic up.
Hold on a minute.
No, Sue. That mic.
Oh, hold on. 2 seconds. Right. Let me just see if I can turn this up a bit, the volume.
It should be able to.
Right. Try that. Does that sound any good? I can hear you. They can hear you. So I've just turned the mic up. So can you hear me all right now, Steph?
Hang on.
It's because I've got it on hands-free. Oh, I don't know why. Oh, hold on.
No, I can't even talk.
Try again.
Try again.
There you go.
Hey!
You're there now.
You can hear me now?
Yes, definitely. Right, you're going to Cockenzie House on the 29th, but we
Get away from the mic a little bit.
we mentioned recently that it was in the newspapers, wasn't it? Because they took the story without your consent, really.
Yes, yeah.
So if you can take us through the night and what happened, and then about the story, how they got the story afterwards.
Well, on the investigation, I was just walking out to my van halfway through, or whatever it is. I think I left my wallet in the van or something, and I came across this woman, and she was sort of crawling in the middle of the road, but she looked kind of, I don't know, she looked like she'd possibly been hit by a car or something, I don't know, or maybe she was drunk, I don't know. But either way, my mind was just thinking, well, okay, if she hasn't been hit by a car, she's going to in a minute. So my reaction was to just sort of go over to her, speak to her, say, "You all right? Is everything okay?" And sort of said, "Look, do you need a hand getting up?" And she seemed to be relatively sort of coherent, and she tried to get up herself, but she didn't really that well. So she reached out and I helped her up, but she had no weight to her whatsoever. So I helped her up. I was like, "You okay? Is everything fine?" You know. She was like, "Yes," like that, and that was it. So okay, well, all right, you mind there you go. Took a couple of steps away from her, sort of turned round. Something told me to turn round just in case she's fallen over again, and she was gone. Now, I didn't really think about it at all, or anything. I just carried on and think, oh, fair enough, I just helped someone out, you know, well done me, as you do. Went out to the van, came back, and it was when I thought about it later, I thought, well, actually, there's nowhere she could have possibly gone. Now, I don't think we claim it to be a spirit or a ghost. It could just be a very strange occurrence. But it was interesting because we looked it up and it turned out that on that particular stretch of road there is a lady in fact that has been seen on that particular stretch of road. Now, the Edinburgh newspaper put it in the papers, which we didn't actually know about. And they were saying, oh, she was walking, her back was broken and things like that, and, you know. And I never said anything about her back being broken. Her back was broken. I definitely would have helped her up off of the road.
Yeah.
No, I would have just sort of said, look, stay there and I'll call an ambulance. But, you know, so they did the usual sort of exaggerate sort of scenario, really. But it's just interesting how it was on the sort of that particular stretch of road where this lady in black has been seen. It was on the paranormal database. Google it, and it was just a strange occurrence because either side of the road, one side there was a great big field, the other side there was a brick wall. It must be about, well, I mean, I think we did a reconstruction video and you see the brick wall's like probably about 7 foot high, that brick wall.
Yeah.
So I can't quite see where she could have gone.
Now,
so, especially within a few steps of me walking away from her, if she was in such a state where she could walk, then how would she manage to have got away from my side that quick? But it was definitely a strange moment.
Yeah, and I believe that all you really done was put it on your web page or put it somewhere just to really get some people's opinions.
Well, this is it, because it was a rather bizarre occurrence. And she didn't seem drunk or anything. She looked dazed, and she seemed like shocked, like dazed. So it was, we sort of, obviously it's the investigation night, so, you know, we sort of say, well, you know, this encountered this throughout the night, but, you know, what do people think and that, and, but I say the newspapers sort of exaggerated it a little bit.
Beth's in the chat room. She's asking whether she had black eyes.
Yes, I just see that. Yes, she did have black eyes. She had big glasses on. Like they were like proper thin sights she had on. But she had like really black eyes, but they sort of looked through me, not at me. So it was. But I think the two strangest things, well, apart from the fact that she actually disappeared, I think the strangest thing is when I helped her up, I sort of grabbed myself. I sort of held myself ready because you know when you pick up someone that's drunk or whatever, they're like a dead weight, and you know, so I sort of prepared myself for it. But it was like lifting up paper. And then when she did get up, bear in mind it was raining. It was quite a dark, rainy, horrible night. And she got up and there was no like mud or or anything. She looked, when she got up, she actually looked perfectly dressed, and her dress was quite old fashioned. Now it's quite a sort of a bizarre sort of thing. It's one of them things because, like I say, I didn't think about any of it at the time. It was after it happened, and the more it's one of the things. The more you think about, the more it doesn't add up.
Do you see Bev's question there? Did anything bad happen in the coming weeks? Was anyone ill?
Right. Now, actually, Jan, she just nudged me to say about it. I wouldn't say bad. What happened in the following weeks, which I actually spoke to you about, I could hear sounds in the background, and the best way I could describe these sounds were like, I don't know, how could I... It's going to sound really weird explaining this, but can you imagine what a pterodactyl dinosaur would sound like?
Yeah.
It sounded like what you'd imagine one of them, but it sounded far off in the distance. Now, that, I'm not saying that's connected or anything. However, there was an instance when myself and my wife were laying in bed chatting, with the lights were off, and like a ball of light, like a bluish sort of light shot across the room. And that happened a couple of days after. I was, what else? I mean, it's died down now. What else was I? I was getting quite headaches, a lot of headaches, and sort of disorientation. Like I felt like I was like, what's the word? Disconnected from myself, if that makes sense. Like I know you have like people that sort of astro travel and stuff.
Yeah.
So I sort of felt like I wasn't inside of myself. But again, I can't say that that's connected because I can't prove it. But it's definitely it happened like after, and it went on for a couple of weeks. It seems to be dying down a little bit now, though.
Yeah. Now you see Andy's question there, and just for the listeners, how do you feel? How did she feel when you touched her as she got up? You said she had no weight, but could actually feel anything at all.
All she felt was cold. I didn't. I held out my hand, and she took my hand. Okay, and then as I lifted up, I felt cold, but I didn't feel like a grip, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I lifted her up, like I say, there was no weight. She wasn't like, if you help someone by pulling them up with their hand, you're sort of pulling their whole body up, and that I didn't feel any of that, and it just felt like a coldness, but not like a grip around my hand, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Now you used to be a skeptic, didn't you, Stephen?
I still am.
Well, this is it. You know what I mean? You're very rational, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, skeptics probably a too much of a firmer word for what I do. I mean, I believe things. I've seen many things which I can say I can't explain. That doesn't necessarily mean there's not an explanation for it. The way I look at it is, if there is, a minute possibility of an explanation, then it's still in the equation, and it's still got to be taken as part of it. So, so I wouldn't say I'm a skeptic. I'd just say it takes a lot to convince me that something is paranormal.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So you're more rational.
With respect to this incident, do I believe this is paranormal? I don't really know.
The mind boggles on that one.
I struggle to answer that question myself. I just can't explain it. I can't explain where she possibly could have gone. I can't explain why when she stood up she was bone dry and and when it's pouring down with rain. I can't understand. I don't understand why she had absolutely no weight to her whatsoever. And as she pulled up, she sort of untwisted. She was like when she was walking on the road, it's sort of like a crab type walk. It's an awkward looking walk. But I mean, I'm not saying her back was broken or anything like that. She just, it's just you'd have to be quite agile to get into that position, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, what you'll have to do is see whether go to that area when you go back there in a couple of weeks, see whether you see it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Or go next year on the same day and the same time, because it could have been an anniversary thing.
It could have been, yes, we thought about this. It could have been an anniversary or something. But I mean, it's one of them things. I mean, I don't believe for one second that if I go out there at the same time and stand on the road, that it's going to happen again. It's one of the things that is because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah.
It happened. I don't know. So I'm not sure whether. Well, but I mean, you never know. I suppose it's definitely one of the. It's definitely on my sort of top 10 list of strange occurrences.
I can tell it's actually thrown you a bit, and
it did throw me, yeah, because obviously, for those I don't know, for those who don't know me, I mean, you're my mum. You obviously know me.
Yeah.
So it's I will sit there and I will analyse anything to a point where I will come up with some kind of answer, but I struggle a lot to get an answer from this one. It's probably out of determination. I try and find a rational answer for it, but this particular one I struggle with, and it's these ones that sort of stick in my mind a bit more.
So I'm just looking on the database now as we speak, and
yeah, it's very vague. Kickenzie ghost. It's woman in black. It's very vague though. And we had a look. We couldn't really find a lot much more else about it. But it's quite.
Yeah, a phantom woman dressed in black clothes walks between these two places.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, on the B1348 between Cockenzie and Prestonpans. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Obviously, we didn't know that was on there until after. We looked it up after the investigation to see if any sightings have been made of anything like this, and that's when we found that. So. Yeah.
So I'm just laughing at Andy what he's put there. He said, "Hellfire and bananas. Who's your son?" I don't know. But what's put that?
He knew you had one.
I knew
it was on the phone.
What? I knew Sue's got one, but didn't realise it was him on the phone.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you'll have to let us know how that pans out. What happens next time you go, whether anything else occurs, or whether it happens as an anniversary thing. You'll have to keep us in contact on that.
Absolutely.
Because I am interested to find out exactly, what's going on.
I mean, we were like I say, we were quite disappointed about the newspapers exaggerating, broken back, and always, and I think they said it was like demonic or something, and things like that. But I mean, this just goes to show you, and it proves a big point that. Especially in like instances like you were talking about at the beginning of your show about like such and such has been reported and this that, it just goes to show don't read anything that you don't believe anything that you read, basically.
Well, this is it, because they didn't ask your permission to do it.
No.
They just found it on the website or wherever you put it and decided to put it together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We found it through web surfing. And
obviously looking for something for Halloween.
It just goes to show you, when you see these reports in papers and things like that, just take it all with a pinch of salt, because I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, well, this is it. Well, don't get can't get anything bad happen to you lot, will you?
Oh, no. No.
Because what with Jan being my daughter-in-law, just for your purpose, Andy, you know, I don't want anything happening to the family up there. So,
Yeah. No,
you know,
no.
you just be
fine.
careful. All right.
Yeah.
So,
And so, yeah, we're back to Kickenzie the end of the month for a 2-day stint at it.
yeah,
And that'll be our last investigation for the year.
yeah,
We'll wrap up till 2015.
Yeah, 2015. Oh my God.
How long has Lanarkshire Paranormal actually been going now?
Yeah, how long have you been going now?
We at the beginning of next year we'll be going on to just at the beginning of our 5th year.
5th year, God.
Aye,
5 years. You know, we were saying that like 7 years is a long time in this industry, but 5 years is definitely, you know, it is a long time. You know what I mean? There's not many people that can actually say they've been going that long. 5 years.
Because there's not actually a lot of groups up in Scotland.
No, there's not a lot. There's not many groups up there, is there, Steph?
No, there's not. Well, there are, but they're very. Excuse me. They're very sort of. They like to. Well, I don't know whether they like to, but they tend to be quite small, and they tend to be more sort of along the lines of driving to graveyards and spending the night there with a camera or something. They're not as proactive as many groups, as some of the groups up here, like ourselves. You know, they're more like a crowd of friends that sort of go trespassing in a couple of derelict buildings or something every now and again.
And I'm right in thinking you're not a company, are you? You're just a non-profit group.
We're a non-profit organisation. However, we are going down the lines of like we're trademarking and also registered charity. Not a charity. Not obviously we're not a charity.
Registered company.
Yeah. You know,
but you're not a company. Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Not a charity organisation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as I say, it's you know, it's. I'm pleased you've been going 5 years.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Like I say, it's not quite yet.
Yeah, but
it's getting there. I mean, you know, when we first started off, I mean, you know, it's I mean, you know, there's obviously a long period of time, you know, where you first start and you're doing all your building your websites and you know all that lot before you actually get into actively investigating. So. You know, so I mean that probably took about 6 months to actually sort of get everything together first, sort of thing, you know. So I mean,
who's actually in your team
when
then,
it's 5
Steph?
years, it's sort of like 5 years from the point where we sat down and said, "Oh, I have no idea."
Well, give everyone a name check, Steph. Who's actually in your team?
Who's in the team?
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously myself and my wife Jan. We're the managers and the founders.
Yeah.
We've got Debbie. She's on the team. We've got Alistair, who's recently on the team, and we got Laura. Laura. She's just had a baby as well. So. And we got Alex as well. Alex, he had to leave temporarily due to work commitments, but he's due back with us after Christmas.
Right. Okay. So
I think that's everyone.
You're as bad as me. I have to look at my team page to check everyone.
I know. We try and keep the team sort of small because you know, it's nice, sort of close knit family type sort of stuff.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. So
we have to do it the other way because of work commitments.
Yeah, we have to. We have to have more in our team because 9 times out of 10, half of the team can't do it because of work commitments. But
well, this is it. I mean, you know, that is the thing. But I mean, the good thing about having work as well is that if they're nice enough, you can get them to sponsor you, which I'm working on at the moment.
Well, this is it. So, what's your website page for everyone to have a look at?
www.lanarkshireparanormal.co.uk.
That's Lanarkshire and not Lancaster.
Yeah, Lanarkshire. Lanarkshire.
That was down to Google, whatever it was, FB Checker. I put it in and I thought, why is that not coming up with a link like it normally does in FB? So I thought, oh well. And then it wasn't until you said it that I realised what I'd done. So it must have corrected it.
Oh, right. Oh, the STV.
Yeah, on the STV thing.
Yeah, Lancaster you put or something.
Yeah, so I brought it a bit closer to home. That's what it was.
Yeah, a couple of 100 miles.
So what was you on the TV for again?
Say again?
What was you on the TV for, STV?
To be honest with you, I don't really know. No, I don't, because it was 2 days before the interview. STV, those who don't know, STV is our channel 3 up here.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a disease, but it's not. It's actually our channel. And they phoned us about 2 days before, asking us if we could do an interview. Coming up to Halloween. It's like, yeah, okay. So we went in, and it was about the guy was talking about a theatre, about ghosts in a theatre. We'd not actually done this theatre, right?
Yeah.
So they just said they just wanted a paranormal team to discuss a topic of ghosts. So there we go. So I was in there, and then she just asked a couple of random questions. And that was it, really. So the whole sort of thing didn't really make sense as to why I was there. But yeah, I think it was just Halloween.
Yeah.
They just wanted something spooky on, really.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Any chance of getting into that theatre?
Possibly.
Well.
I mean, we are nearly fully booked for 2015, so it might be.
Yeah.
Might squeeze it, but yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's how many do you squeeze in a year? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, this is it. So, well then, thank you, my babe, for updating us with that.
Okie dokie.
Keep us posted.
All right then.
All right, and because I'm sure everyone in the chat room would like to know what the outcome was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the public guests that are coming on I think they want to go out on the roadside at that particular time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But, but we'll let you know. We'll post it on all over the place anyway. And
all right then.
If anything happens.
Okay then, my love. Well, you take care. Love to Jan and everyone.
All right.
Good night.
All right, night. Bye.
Bye. So that was Steph telling us about what happened there, and as Steve said, you've heard it literally from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, doesn't it, about these newspapers?
They do. I mean, at the end of the day, they feel like they have to big everything up.
Yeah.
More than it is.
Yeah, this is it.
To make the headline.
Yeah. So, well, guys, I'm afraid it's time for us to finish off. Just to let you know what's coming up next week.
Coming soon.
Next up, we have John Blackburn's joining us next week, and Andy Mercer will be live in the hub as we talk about the Anguishman painting. Now, we've had this painting on the show before, which has been following John around on his Mysteria paranormal events for some time now, and he joins us again to update us on the painting and how it has started to affect his life. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? He's basically let it into his life.
He wants to get the bloody thing out. I'm telling you.
So we're going to have the painting here with us in our new home. So
yeah, we had it in the old one.
We had it in the old one. Yeah.
I'm going to put it in this one.
One thing we're not going to do is do a Ouija board session live during that night. I don't think it's a good idea. So
no, not during the Anguishman's bit. No.
Literally following all by itself. No, not literally following all by itself. He takes it with him on his paranormal events
tour.
And just to see whether they can get any other activity from it. And those of you who don't know the story about the Anguishman, let me just bring it up for you. It's a painting that nobody knows who actually painted it. Or when they painted it. And I've just found an advert on creepypasta.
It's a bit Scream, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll go to paranormal.com. That's a bit better. But I'll put that link in there for you. Hold on, let me just go to Bitly. It'd be better to put it in there. But the story about the Anguishman is basically, it's a bit weird. It's a bit like the Scream one.
Yeah.
Don't know whether Stephen's seen it before.
Yeah, it's rumoured that it was it's painted with blood.
Yes.
I think tests have been done and it came back inconclusive as to whether it was or not.
So basically, it's owned by Sean Robinson, and he said, "I just thought I would send this update to the Anguishman. I have recently temporarily moved into my parents'." When was this done? This was done in...
This was done quite a while
ago.
May 2013.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Because I actually put it out on the observations.
Yeah. And basically, it's not really telling me about it there. It's not what I wanted, unfortunately. I wanted something else.
But the picture's there, so you can see the picture.
So, yeah, you can see the picture. I found this one, creepy pasta. Don't ask. So, let me just get this link for you. This should tell you a bit. Yeah.
Creepy pasta.
Is this one going to tell me? But basically, it's supposed to be allegedly painted in blood. I will find it somewhere. Oh, here you are. The artist has not yet been identified. That's better. Try that one. Where was it? Let's see what we've got here. He believes that it is haunted, Sean Robinson, and he says, I promise that I would share some art-related stories. Well, that's what they say, perfect for Halloween. That's what the article's all about, showing what's name stories. But apparently he inherited the painting from his grandmother. The painting, titled The Anguished Man, had been stored in his grandmother's attic for over 25 years. On face value, the painting was an unwanted gift that his grandmother had received from a friend. Yet his grandmother has insisted that the painting was evil. She felt it was the best to keep the painting locked in storage. Nevertheless, Sean, doubting supernatural paranormal activity, claimed the painting shortly after his mother's death. He viewed the painting as an oddity, a mere conversation piece. It is easy to see why Sean viewed the painting as a curiosity. His grandmother had told him stories about the painting when he was younger. She recalled that the artist had committed suicide after the painting was completed. She noted that the artist had mixed his own blood in the oil paints. Additionally, she told Sean about her sighting of a dark, ghostly figure in the house and claimed that the painting was the source of the strange noises, such as the sound of a man crying. The painting was clearly more than just a conversational piece, in her opinion. And as I say, it's been following John around for a couple of years now. Andy's met this painting when he was at the Cage. So
we've both done a lone vigil with it at Drakelow Tunnels.
So yeah, I thought you'd like it, Steph. So yeah, that last one tells you more or less about the story of it.
Which did you put a link up?
Yes, I did. I think it was the right link, wasn't it? Oh no, I didn't. Sorry, well, 2 seconds.
Beth did.
Did she?
Beth put a link up, but
right, that was the one I was actually reading from.
Yeah. Mailbag.
Yeah.
Torturous Cries of the Anguished Man.
Yeah, that was the one I was actually reading from that I've just put there. Steph wants it on a t-shirt.
Well, I have got a picture of it, so I can send that up to you for you.
Yeah, but you have to get permission. I'll have to ask John if it's possible. So, Christmas is coming and all. I'll ask John if it's possible. Perhaps he can ask the powers of be whether it can be done or not. But Andy saw the painting at the Cage. That's right, the house in St. Oslive. So, no, says Jan. So, well, anyway, as I say, that's what's coming on next week. Okay, so we will have that painting here, and you can see it for yourself. So don't forget, if you would like to be on the show yourself, then email us at admin@ktpf.co.uk. We are always open to discuss any specific areas of this genre, including ghosts, monsters, psychic phenomena, or other supernatural and unexplained mysteries. We're also looking for groups to come on to tell us about themselves and where they've been and what they think's haunted and not haunted. So remember, this is your show too, so get involved. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and we look forward to having your company again next Sunday at 8 p.m. UK time on www.ktpf.co.uk. Thank you for listening to the KTPF Community Show.
This is where it's at.
Recommended by Phenomena Magazine, the UK's leading online publication, and sponsored by
Craigenhouse Castle, South Wales, one of the most haunted castles in Wales. For more information on ghostly and ghastly events, including fright nights, all-night investigations, and hen parties, visit www.mosthauntedcastle.com.
Yeah, as I said, that's it for tonight. So please enjoy your week, and if you have anything spookily going on, then don't forget to let us know, and we'll tell you about Winter Gardens next week.
We will.
If we've got time.
Until
then,
we'll get John to make some notes of what he experienced, so we can get his bit as well.
Okay, so until next time, all we ask you to remember is
keep the paranormal friendly.
Good night,
Good night, everyone.
To see in the night, to measure the spike, to see how cold it's been. I buy my kit so I won't forget the ghosties that I have seen. The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.